My phone screen felt like it was burning a hole through my hand. Derek's text message sat there, mocking me with an address I didn't want to memorize. Some fancy restaurant called Marcello's in downtown Seattle. I had 30 minutes before I was supposed to walk through those doors and meet a complete stranger for a blind date. 30 minutes before my life potentially became the most awkward dinner party in human history. This wasn't even my idea. Derek had been bugging me about this for 3 whole months. 3 months of constant pestering. Every time we hung out, every phone call, every single text conversation somehow looped back to the same topic. I needed to start dating again. I needed to put myself out there. I needed to stop being so scared of getting hurt. Like Derek had any idea what he was talking about. My last relationship ended 2 years ago in what I can only describe as a complete train wreck. The kind of breakup that makes you want to move to another city and change your name. After that mess, I was perfectly happy being alone. I had my job. I had my friends. I had my volunteer work at the youth center. I didn't need romance complicating everything again. But Derek wouldn't drop it. 2 weeks ago, he literally cornered me at our friend Josh's barbecue. I was trying to leave, keys in hand, ready to escape, and Derek stepped right in front of my car, arms crossed, that stubborn look on his face that meant he wasn't moving until he got what he wanted. He went on and on about how this woman was perfect for me, how we had so much in common, how she was smart and driven and worked in corporate management. I pointed out that half of Seattle worked in corporate management, so that wasn't exactly helpful information. Derek just waved his hand at me like I was being difficult on purpose. What made this whole situation 1,000 times worse was the mystery of it all. I knew absolutely nothing about this woman. Derek refused to tell me her last name. He wouldn't show me a single picture. All I had was a first name. Amanda. That was it. Just Amanda. When I asked for more details, Derek launched into the speech about how photos ruin the magic of first meetings. How people should connect naturally without having already judged each other based on appearances. I thought it was complete garbage, but Derek was insistent. So there I was, getting ready to meet Mystery Amanda based on nothing but my best friend's terrible judgment and the fact that her name started with an A. I stared at myself in the bathroom mirror. My tie felt like it was choking me. I loosened it a little, then tightened it again, then loosened it once more. Nothing felt right. My dress shoes pinched my feet even though I'd worn them 100 times before. My shirt collar felt scratchy against my neck. Everything about this situation felt wrong. But I knew what would happen if I bailed. Derek would never let me hear the end of it. He'd tell our entire friend group. They'd all give me disappointed looks and lectures about taking chances. Someone would probably organize an intervention or something equally embarrassing. I grabbed my keys off the counter and headed out the door. The drive through Seattle traffic gave me way too much time to think. My brain started running through every possible disaster that could happen tonight. What if Amanda was the most boring person I'd ever met? What if we sat there in painful silence for 2 hours? What if we had absolutely nothing to talk about and just stared at our food the whole time? What if Derek had completely misjudged what kind of person I'd actually like? His track record with setups wasn't exactly stellar. Last year he tried to set up our mutual friend Brandon with someone, and they spent the entire evening arguing about whether Seattle actually had the best coffee in the country. Brandon said it was insufferable. I believed him. I pulled into the parking garage near Marcello's at exactly 6:40. That gave me 5 minutes to walk to the restaurant and another 5 minutes to have a quiet breakdown. Before Amanda showed up. Marcello's was the kind of place that screamed expensive from a block away. Tall glass windows. Soft golden lighting spilling out onto the sidewalk. A doorman in an actual uniform who opened the door for me with a polite nod. The hostess inside stood behind a sleek wooden podium, wearing all black, her hair pulled back in a perfect bun. She smiled at me with the kind of professional warmth that told me she'd seen 1,000 nervous guys walk through this door. Probably more. Cleared my throat. Told her I was meeting someone. She glanced down at her reservation book, running one perfectly manicured finger down the list of names. Found what she was looking for. Nodded. Asked me to follow her. We walked through the restaurant, weaving between tables covered in white tablecloths. Candles flickered in small glass holders. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers. Everyone here looked like they belonged in a magazine spread. I felt completely out of place. The hostess stopped at a corner table near the windows. Table 12. She gestured to one of the chairs with an elegant sweep of her hand. Told me my date hadn't arrived yet. Asked if I wanted to look at the menu while I waited. I said yes, even though I couldn't focus on food right now. She placed 2 leather-bound menus on the table and disappeared. I sat down facing the entrance. Strategic positioning. I wanted to see Amanda before she saw me. Maybe I could figure out something about her personality from the way she walked or what she was wearing. Derek had given me exactly 2 pieces of information about her appearance. Blonde hair. Probably wearing something business professional. That could describe about 10,000 women in Seattle. Maybe more. I pretended to study the menu. Risotto. Salmon. Pasta dishes with Italian names I couldn't pronounce. Everything was expensive. Like, check your bank account before ordering expensive. I started doing mental math about how much this dinner was going to cost me, which didn't help my nerves at all. 6:51 according to my watch. Amanda would probably show up in the next few minutes. My legs started bouncing under the table. I forced it to stop, took a deep breath, tried to relax. This was just dinner. Just one meal with a stranger. If it went badly, I'd never have to see her again. If it went well, maybe Derek would finally stop pestering me. That was something to hope for at least. 6:53. The front door opened. A woman walked in. Blonde hairstyled, wearing a navy dress. She looked professional but not stiff. Put together. Confident. I felt my entire body go cold. Not nervous cold. Not first date jitters cold. Cold like when you realize something terrible is about to happen and you can't stop it. Because I recognized that woman. I knew exactly who she was. Amanda Winters. My CEO. The woman who ran the entire company where I worked. The woman who conducted every major meeting. The woman who approved my performance reviews and signed off on department budgets. The woman who made decisions that affected hundreds of employees every single day. The woman I'd been carefully professional around for 8 months because she was intimidating and accomplished and so far out of my league it wasn't even funny. She was wearing clothes I'd never seen her wear to work. Her hair was styled softer than her usual office look. But it was definitely her. There was absolutely no mistaking Amanda Winters. My first thought was pure confusion. What was she doing here? Marcello's was nowhere near our office. It was Friday evening. Maybe she had a business dinner. Maybe this was just a weird coincidence. Maybe she'd walk right past my table and sit somewhere else and I could text Derek that Amanda hadn't shown up and I tried my best, but oh well. I watched Amanda stop at the hostess stand. Watched her say something I couldn't hear from across the room. Watched the hostess check her reservation book. Watched the hostess smile and point. Point directly toward the corner of the restaurant. Point directly toward the windows. Point directly toward table 12. Point directly at me. My second thought was that I needed to leave right now. Immediately. Before this became an actual situation. I started to push my chair back, already forming some excuse in my head. Wrong restaurant. Wrong time. Wrong person. Anything to get out of here before Amanda reached the table. But I moved too slow. Way too slow. Amanda was already walking toward me. Already crossing the restaurant floor. Already close enough that leaving would make everything 1,000 times more awkward than it already was. Her eyes landed on me. I watched her face change. Watched calm turn into confusion. Watched confusion turn into something that looked a lot like horror. She stopped right next to table 12. Just stood there, staring at me. I stared back at her. Neither of us said anything. 5 seconds passed. Maybe more. 5 seconds that felt like 5 hours. Like 5 years. Like an eternity of awkward silence stretching out between us. Finally, Amanda spoke. Her voice had that edge it always carried at work when something unexpected happened during a meeting. Sharp. Controlled. Trying to figure out the problem. What are you doing here? I was halfway out of my chair before I realized I was moving. Standing felt weird. Sitting felt worse. I ended up in this awkward, half-standing position that probably looked ridiculous. My mouth felt dry. Words came out anyway. I'm meeting someone. I think you might have the wrong table. This is table 12. I pointed at the little number card sitting on the table like she couldn't read. Like she hadn't already confirmed with the hostess that this was exactly where she was supposed to be. Amanda pulled her phone out of her blazer pocket. Looked at the screen. Looked back at me. Her expression didn't change. Still confused. Still trying to piece together what was happening. No, I'm definitely at table 12. I'm meeting someone too. My friend Claire set this up. She turned her phone toward me. Showed me a text message that clearly said table 12 at Marcelo's at 7. I pulled out my own phone with shaking hands. Found Derek's message. Read it again even though I'd already memorized it. Table 12 at Marcelo's at 7. We both stood there looking at our phones. The noise of the restaurant faded into background static. Conversations from other tables. Soft music from the speakers. The clink of silverware on plates. None of it mattered. All I could focus on was the horrible sinking feeling spreading through my stomach. Something was very wrong here. Something was very, very wrong. Amanda spoke slowly, carefully, like she was testing out a theory she didn't want to be true. Wait, who are you meeting? My throat went completely dry. I had to swallow twice before words would come out. Someone named Amanda. My best friend set it up. He only gave me a first name. I watched Amanda's face. Watched the exact moment she started putting the pieces together. Watched her cheeks start turning red. Watched horror replace confusion. She took a breath. Held it. Let it out slow. I'm meeting someone named. She paused. Closed her eyes for half a second. Someone named Ethan. My friend Claire set it up. She said he works in operations. Everything clicked into place at once. Like a puzzle I didn't want to solve. Like a picture I didn't want to see. We were both here for a blind date. We were both at table 12. We were both meeting people with first names that matched the person standing right in front of us. My voice came out flat. Your friend is Claire Henderson? Amanda nodded. Looked like she might be sick. Your best friend is Derek Martinez? I nodded. We both said the exact same thing at the exact same time. You have got to be kidding me. Amanda dropped into the chair across from me like her legs gave out. Put her hand over her face. Made a sound that might have been a groan or might have been a laugh. Couldn't tell. I sat down too because standing was no longer an option. My brain felt like it was short-circuiting. What do you even say when you realize you've been set up on a blind date? With your CEO? The woman who literally has the power to fire you. The woman you've been carefully professional around for 8 months because she's intimidating and successful and completely out of your league in every possible way. A server appeared next to our table. Young guy, cheerful smile, completely unaware that our lives were falling apart right in front of him. Good evening. Can I start you folks off with some drinks? I didn't even look at him. Just blurted out the first thing that came to mind. Beer. Whatever you have. The biggest one. Amanda's voice came out muffled from behind her hand. Wine. Red. Also the biggest one. The server must have picked up on something because he disappeared fast. Didn't ask any follow-up questions. Didn't try to tell us about specials. Just vanished. Smart guy. Amanda finally looked up. Her cheeks were bright red. Her perfectly styled hair suddenly seemed less perfect. She looked flustered in a way I'd never seen at work. I can't believe this. Derek knows where I work. Something defensive flared up in my chest. Claire knows where I work too. Why wouldn't she tell you? Amanda's eyes narrowed just a little. That look she got during meetings when someone said something she disagreed with. You've complained about me at work, haven't you? My face got hot. What? No. I mean, not complained exactly. Maybe mentioned that you're somewhat intimidating. Her arms crossed. Body language going full defense mode. Intimidating? You're the one who never speaks up in meetings and then sends these follow-up messages questioning decisions. I sat up straighter. Felt my own defenses kicking in. Those aren't passive-aggressive. Those are clarifying questions because sometimes the directives aren't entirely clear. We glared at each other across the table. Two people who barely spoke at work suddenly arguing about work stuff during what was supposed to be a date. The absurdity of it hit me all at once. We were fighting, at a fancy restaurant, about departmental communication, during a blind date neither of us wanted to be on. Amanda must have realized it at the same time because she let out this laugh. Not a happy laugh. A slightly hysterical laugh that said she couldn't believe this was happening. This is a nightmare. We can't go on a date. We don't even get along. I pulled out my phone, typed out a message to Derek with shaking fingers. Seriously? You set me up with my CEO? What were you thinking? His response came back almost instantly, like he'd been waiting for me to text him. Yes. You're welcome. She's amazing. Just give it a chance. I turned my phone toward Amanda, showed her Derek's message. She was already texting Claire, already getting the same kind of response judging by the look on her face. She turned her phone toward me. Claire had written back, "You've both been single too long. Give it 1 hour. If it's terrible, you never have to mention it again." The server came back with our drinks, set them down carefully, asked if we needed more time with the menu. I said yes without looking at him. Had no idea what was even on the menu. Couldn't have told you a single item if someone paid me. Amanda grabbed her wine glass, took a long drink, set it down harder than necessary, let out a sigh that seemed to come from somewhere deep in her chest. Look, this is clearly a disaster, but we're already here and I'm starving and it would be wasteful to abandon this reservation. What if we just eat and then agree to never speak of this again? Esther here. Picked up my beer, drank half of it in one go. You want to have dinner together? We can barely get through a quarterly review without you pointing out everything my department did wrong. Her jaw tightened, that professional mask sliding back into place. Because your department doesn't always follow established protocol. But fine. If you'd rather leave and deal with Derek interrogating you about why you bailed, I'll understand. She was right. Derek would absolutely grill me if I left now. Would want to know every detail. Would probably tell our entire friend group. They'd all want explanations. Want to know what went wrong. Want to give me advice I didn't ask for. Going back to normal after tonight would be impossible either way. At least if I stayed for dinner, I could say I tried. Fine, I said. Heard how defensive I sounded. Tried to soften it a little. 1 hour. We eat. We make conversation like adults. Then we go back to normal and pretend this never happened. Amanda nodded. Still looked miserable but nodded. Deal. And for the record, I'm only doing this so Claire stops arranging dates for me. We both picked up our menus, stared at them without really reading. The silence stretched out between us. Uncomfortable. Heavy. I found myself reading the same pasta description 3 times without absorbing a single word. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. Set down my menu. Looked at Amanda across the table. So this is officially the strangest thing that's happened to me all year. Amanda actually smiled. Just a tiny bit. Just for a second. Same. And I once got trapped in an elevator with the entire executive board for 4 hours. So that's saying something. The first 20 minutes felt like sitting through a dental appointment. We talked about the weather, how cold Seattle had been getting, whether it would snow this year. Amanda mentioned the traffic on I-5, and I agreed it was terrible. We discussed the construction downtown that blocked half the streets, and she said something about how the city never finished projects on time. I was running out of safe topics fast. Every few seconds, I'd glance at her and then look away, worried she'd catch me staring. She cut her salmon into tiny, perfect pieces, and I wondered if she approached everything in her life with that same careful attention. My pasta was getting cold because I was too nervous to eat properly. We'd just finished complaining about parking in the city when Amanda surprised me. So Derek mentioned you do volunteer work. What's that about? I felt my shoulders relax a little. Talking about the youth center was easy. It was the one thing I cared about outside of my job. Yeah. I teach web development classes to teenagers at the East Side Youth Center. Started doing it about a year ago. I twisted my fork in my pasta. A lot of these kids don't get technology education at their schools. We try to help with that. Teach them how to code, how to build websites, stuff like that. Amanda leaned forward, and her whole face changed. She looked actually interested, not just polite. Wait, the East Side Center on Broadway? The one near the old theater? I nodded. You know it. Her eyes got brighter. I'm on the board of directors there. I've been on it for 3 years now. We just approved more money for the technology programs last quarter. My brain stopped working for a second. You're on the board? I set down my fork. Are you the Winters who paid for our equipment upgrade? She nodded like it was no big deal. The center needed proper resources. Those kids deserve the same chances as everyone else. I just stared at her. This didn't match the Amanda I knew from work at all. The woman who ran meetings like a military general. The woman who sent emails before the sun came up. You paid for our program. We got 20 new computers because of you. I had no idea it was you. She shrugged. The center does good work. It made sense to help. And just like that, we were talking for real. Not awkward small talk about traffic or weather. Real conversation. Amanda told me about growing up in a neighborhood that didn't have much money. How she understood what it meant when someone believed in you enough to give you a chance. I told her about my students. About this one kid who thought he was bad at everything until he built his first website. How his whole face lit up when he realized he'd created something real. She asked questions about what I taught, about the curriculum. She suggested ideas for partnering with tech companies in the area. I found myself actually enjoying this. This version of Amanda was warm and engaged. She laughed at my stories. She seemed genuinely excited about the work we were doing. Nothing about her felt intimidating right now. Time moved faster than I realized. The waiter came back to clear our plates, and I looked at my watch. We'd been sitting there for almost 90 minutes. We said 1 hour, I pointed out. Amanda checked her phone and looked surprised. I didn't even notice. She looked at me with a small smile. I guess when we're not talking about budget reports, we can actually stand each other. I laughed. Yeah, you're way less scary when you're not telling me everything my department does wrong. Amanda grabbed her napkin and threw it at me across the table. I don't tell you what you do wrong. I provide guidance. That's completely different. We ended up ordering tiramisu to split. Amanda said she couldn't eat a whole dessert by herself, and I loved anything with coffee in it. By the time we paid and walked outside, it was almost 9:30. I couldn't remember the last time I'd stayed somewhere that long on purpose. We stood next to her car in the parking lot. Neither of us seemed to know what to say now. I broke the silence first. So this was way better than I thought it would be. I'm kind of mad at Derek for tricking us like this. But maybe he was right. We do have things in common. Amanda nodded. Same. Claire is going to be impossible when I tell her this actually went okay. She paused and looked right at me. But Ethan, dating someone from work is asking for problems. Especially when I'm your CEO. The power difference alone makes this really complicated. I knew she was right. But something about how she said it made me think she was trying to convince herself. Not me. Yeah, you're probably right. Bad idea. Let's just go back to normal and pretend this was a weird dream or something. Amanda looked at me for a long time. I could see something in her eyes that made me think she didn't want to pretend at all. But she nodded. Right. Back to normal. We said goodnight. I watched her car drive away and wondered if I just made the biggest mistake of my life. Walking into the office Monday morning felt different. Everything looked the same as always, but my brain wouldn't act normal. I got there at 8:30 like every other day, but when I saw Amanda in the lobby getting coffee, something short-circuited in my head. She wore her usual work clothes. Her hair was styled the way it always was. She looked exactly like she did every single day. Except now I knew what her real smile looked like. Not the polite work smile she gave everyone. The real one. She looked up and our eyes met for half a second. Then she looked away fast and walked toward the elevators. My heart started racing like I'd just run 5 miles. This was stupid. We'd agreed to forget Friday ever happened. We were going back to normal. But nothing felt normal anymore. The meeting that morning was terrible. Amanda went through quarterly numbers like she always did. Confident and in charge. and I sat there trying to focus on the charts while my brain kept replaying our dinner conversation. When she asked if anyone had questions about the timeline, my hand went up. I never raised my hand in these meetings. The operations team can hit those goals, but we might need extra help during the transition. Amanda looked at me with an expression I couldn't figure out. That's a fair point. Let's talk about resources after this meeting. Kevin, who sat next to me, leaned over and whispered, "You feeling okay? You never speak up." I told him I was fine, but I wasn't fine. I noticed everything Amanda said, every time she looked my way, every moment that felt different from before. Saturday morning, I showed up at the youth center for my web development class. I was setting up the laptops when Amanda walked through the front doors carrying a box of equipment. We both froze, just stood there staring while a dozen teenagers moved around us getting ready for class. Jordan, one of my students who loved being nosy, spoke up. "Mr. Bennett, you know Ms. Winters?" I tried to sound normal. "Yeah, she's on the board here. She helps fund our programs." Amanda put down the box. "I was dropping off tablets for the digital design program. I didn't think you'd be here today." Jordan grinned big. "He's here every Saturday. He never misses. One time he came when he had the flu. I wanted to disappear into the floor right then." Amanda smiled at Jordan. "That's real dedication." She looked at me. "Can we talk for a minute? About center stuff?" We stepped into the hallway while the kids set up their computers. Amanda kept her voice quiet. "I didn't know you taught on Saturdays. I usually come by Friday evenings when nobody's here." I put my hands in my pockets. "I didn't know you delivered stuff yourself. I thought board members just wrote checks and came to fancy fundraiser dinners." She actually laughed. "I like seeing where the money goes. Makes it feel real." We stood in that hallway, and it felt exactly like standing in the parking lot after dinner. Like we were both thinking the same thing but scared to say it first. Amanda spoke first. "I've been thinking about Friday night." My stomach flipped. "Yeah." She checked to make sure no one could hear us. "I can't stop thinking about it. And I keep wondering if we gave up too fast because we were scared about the work situation." My pulse sped up. "I've been thinking about it too, like all the time, which makes work really weird because I keep spacing out in meetings." Amanda bit her lip. "Same thing happened to me. I zoned out during a conference call yesterday thinking about our conversation about helping kids. I decided to take a chance. What if we tried again? Not at work, but outside of work. We keep it completely separate. See if this is actually something real before we worry about all the complicated stuff." Amanda stayed quiet for what felt like forever. "The power thing still worries me. If this goes bad, it could make your job impossible. I don't want to do that to you." I appreciated that she cared about that. "What if we make rules? We don't tell anyone at work. We keep our work relationship exactly the same. And we're totally honest with each other. If it starts feeling like a mistake, we stop." She thought about it while voices came from the classroom. "Okay, but we go really slow. And if you ever feel like work is messing this up, or this is messing up work, you tell me right away." I held out my hand. "Deal." She shook it. Her hand felt warm in mine. "So does this mean I can take you to dinner again? Like a real date this time, not an accident?" Amanda smiled. "Yeah, but not Marcello's. I can't go back there for a while." 3 weeks went by and we fell into this pattern that felt like we were teenagers sneaking around. Coffee shops in neighborhoods where no one from the office went. Lunch at this tiny Thai place in a district 40 minutes away. Evening walks along the waterfront when it was dark enough that we probably wouldn't run into anyone we knew. I found myself looking forward to seeing Amanda in a way that had nothing to do with quarterly reports or departmental meetings. She was funny in this quiet, sharp way that caught me off guard. She'd make these observations about people or situations that were so accurate it was almost unsettling. And she actually listened when I talked about the stress of trying to advance in a corporation where everyone seemed more qualified than me. She didn't try to fix things or tell me what to do. She just listened and asked questions that made me think differently about the challenges. We'd only kissed twice and both times had been careful and sweet, like we were both scared of moving too fast and ruining whatever this was. The first time was after dinner at that Thai place, in the parking lot next to her car. The second time was during a walk by the water when she'd said something that made me laugh, and then we just looked at each other and it felt natural to lean in. I was starting to think maybe Derek had actually gotten something right for once in his life. Then Sunday afternoon happened. I was walking through Pioneer Square, just clearing my head and enjoying the weather when I heard someone call my name. I turned around and saw Kevin from work jogging toward me. My stomach dropped because Kevin was exactly the kind of person who noticed everything and told everyone. He caught up to me, breathing hard. "Hey, didn't expect to see you here. You meeting someone?" I tried to sound casual. "No, just walking. Getting some exercise." Kevin nodded toward the path behind him. I could have sworn I just saw Amanda Winters over by the fountain wearing casual clothes, not work attire. Strange seeing her outside the office, right? My brain went into panic mode. Amanda was here in the same square where Kevin had just seen her, and now Kevin was looking at me with this curious expression that meant he was connecting pieces. I said something about needing to get going and walked away quickly, pulling out my phone to text Amanda. "Kevin from work just saw me at Pioneer Square. Said he saw you here too. We need to be more careful." Her response came back immediately. "Meet me at the Rose Garden in 5 minutes." When I found her, she was sitting on a bench looking stressed in a way I hadn't seen since our disaster first date. I sat down next to her, making sure to keep space between us. "Did Kevin see us together?" I shook my head. "No, he saw us separately, but he's going to wonder why we were both here on a Sunday." Amanda put her face in her hands. "This is exactly what I was worried about. We've been so careful, and it only took 3 weeks for someone to almost catch us." Over the next few days, I started noticing things at work. People whispering when I walked by. Kevin giving me these knowing looks during meetings. Someone asked me if I'd been to any good restaurants lately, and the way they said it felt loaded. By Thursday, my friend Lucas from accounting pulled me aside in the break room. "Are you dating Amanda Winters?" I denied it, but I could tell he didn't believe me. He just nodded slowly and said, "Okay, man, whatever you say." That Friday after work, I met Amanda at our usual coffee shop and she looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes like she hadn't been sleeping well. "3 people asked me this week if I was seeing someone from the company," she said, staring at her coffee cup. "I don't know how they know, but they know." She set down her cup harder than necessary. "This is too much, too fast. Everyone's in our business. People at work are gossiping. I can't breathe, Ethan." I tried to take her hand, but she pulled back. "I told you I was worried about this, about everything getting tangled up. And now it's exactly what I was afraid of." I felt my chest tighten. "Amanda, come on. We can handle some gossip. We just keep doing what we're doing." But she shook her head and I could see tears in her eyes. "I don't know if I can. This affects your career. People are going to think you're getting special treatment. They're going to question every decision I make regarding your department. I can't put you in that position." I felt desperate. "So what are you saying?" She looked at me and her voice cracked. "I'm saying I need space to figure out if I can actually do this. I'm sorry. I just need some time." 2 weeks of silence felt like the longest stretch of my entire life. Going back to cold professionalism with Amanda at work was brutal in a way I hadn't expected. Now I knew what her actual smile looked like versus her polite work smile, and I could tell the difference every single time she walked past me in the hallway without making eye contact. I threw myself into work, trying not to think about how much I missed texting her random observations throughout the day. My team noticed I was more irritable than usual. Lucas mentioned I'd been snapping at people over minor mistakes, which wasn't like me. I knew I was being difficult, but I couldn't seem to stop. Everything reminded me of Amanda. The youth center reminded me of our conversation about helping kids. The coffee shop near the office reminded me of our first intentional date. Even quarterly reports reminded me of her because I kept wondering what she'd think about my analysis. Friday afternoon, my phone buzzed with an email from corporate headquarters. Subject line read, "Immediate audit required." My stomach dropped as I read through the message. They were launching a full investigation into departmental spending in operations effective immediately. Someone had flagged irregularities in our budget reports from the past 8 months, and they wanted every receipt, every invoice, every approval form reviewed. I felt sick. My department handled hundreds of transactions every month. If there was an error somewhere, it could look really bad. By Monday, 2 executives from corporate were sitting in our conference room going through files. They asked me questions about purchases I barely remembered approving. They wanted explanations for expenses that seemed completely normal to me but apparently looked suspicious to them. One of them, a stern man named Gregory, kept asking about a series of software purchases back in June. These were approved by you, but the vendor invoices don't match the purchase orders. Can you explain that? I pulled up my records and stared at the numbers. He was right. The amounts were different. Not by much, but enough to matter. I tried to explain that I'd approved what the previous operations manager had set up before I took over the role, but Gregory wasn't buying it. You signed off on these purchases. That makes you responsible for the discrepancies. By Tuesday afternoon, they were discussing formal write-ups, maybe suspension, possibly termination if they found evidence of intentional misreporting. I sat in my office staring at spreadsheets that made no sense, trying to figure out where these errors originated. I'd only been in this position for 8 months. Most of these vendor relationships were established before I arrived, but that didn't matter to corporate. My signature was on the approvals, which meant I was accountable. Wednesday at 2 in the afternoon, there was a knock on my office door. I looked up and Amanda was standing there holding her tablet with that focused expression she got when she was deep in analysis mode. "Can I come in? I think I found something about the audit." I nodded because at this point I'd take help from anyone. She closed the door behind her and sat down across from my desk. "I've been going through the system logs for the past week. I know I didn't have to, but I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I found something you need to see." She pulled up a series of reports on her tablet. There was a vendor payment system error that happened back in May, right before you took over the operations role. The system was processing payments twice for certain invoices but only recording them once in the budget reports. So it looks like there are discrepancies, but it's actually a software glitch that's been running for months. I stared at the screen she was showing me, feeling this wave of relief mixed with confusion. "You dug through months of system logs to find this? Amanda, you didn't have to do that, especially not after everything." She looked at me directly for the first time in 2 weeks. "I did it because it was the right thing to do and because I know you care about doing your job correctly, even when we've disagreed about methods. I wasn't going to let corporate blame you for a system error." I forwarded the information to Gregory immediately, and within an hour, corporate was backing off. They confirmed Amanda's findings and admitted the audit had been triggered by automated flags that didn't account for the software glitch. By end of day, they were apologizing for the disruption and promising to fix the payment system. I went looking for Amanda to thank her properly and found her in the small break room on the 4th floor making tea. "Hey!" She turned around and her expression was guarded. "Hey!" I walked closer but kept some distance between us. "I wanted to say thank you. You saved my job. You saved my entire team. You didn't have to do that, especially after I pushed too hard and made you uncomfortable." Amanda set down her mug. "You didn't make me uncomfortable, Ethan. I made myself uncomfortable. I got overwhelmed by everyone being in our business and I panicked. But these past 2 weeks have been terrible, and I kept thinking about how walking away didn't make me feel better. It just made me miss you. I felt my heart do something complicated in my chest. I missed you too, like a ridiculous amount. And I kept wondering if I should have fought harder to convince you to stay or if giving you space was the right thing to do." Amanda's eyes got shiny. "I was falling for you. That's why it scared me so much, because if this was just casual, it wouldn't matter what people thought or if it got messy. But it wasn't casual for me, and I didn't know how to handle that." I took a step closer. "It wasn't casual for me either. That's why these 2 weeks felt so awful." She looked at me for a long moment. "So what do we do now? Because I don't want to go back to pretending we're just boss and employee who barely talk to each other. That feels worse than taking the risk." I thought about it. What if we stop hiding it? Like actually just be open about dating, file whatever HR paperwork we need to file, deal with the gossip because it's going to happen anyway. And if people have a problem with it, That's their issue to work through, not ours. Amanda smiled for the first time in 2 weeks, and it was her real smile. I'm tired of being scared of what might go wrong. Let's just try. We agreed to do it right this time. No more sneaking around. We filed the proper disclosure forms with HR that documented our relationship and confirmed there was no direct reporting structure between us. We told Derek and Claire, who were both completely insufferable about being right. Derek called me 3 times in one day just to say he told me so in different ways. The office gossip lasted about 2 weeks before people moved on to something else. A few people made comments, but most of our colleagues were actually supportive once they realized we were serious. Lucas told me he thought we made sense together, which I appreciated. The power dynamic concerns were real, but Amanda was careful about documentation and made sure any decisions involving my department went through additional approval channels to avoid conflicts of interest. We had our first real fight about a month in. I'd made a decision about vendor scheduling without consulting her first, and she felt like I'd undermined the process we'd agreed on. We argued in her office after hours, both of us frustrated and talking over each other. But instead of shutting down or walking away, we actually worked through it. We figured out a compromise where I had more freedom for day-to-day decisions but looped her in on anything major. I realized that disagreeing with someone didn't mean the relationship was falling apart. It just meant we were 2 different people learning how to be together. 3 months after our disaster first date, I suggested we go back to Marcello's. Amanda looked at me like I was insane, but she agreed when I said I wanted to replace the bad memory with a good one. We sat at the same table, ordered the same food we'd had that first night. Halfway through the meal, Amanda started laughing. Remember when we first sat down here and you thought I was going to steal your table? I grinned. I thought you were the last person on earth I'd ever want to have dinner with. I was so wrong, it's actually embarrassing. Amanda reached across the table and took my hand. And now, I squeezed her fingers. Now you're the person I want to have dinner with every single night. We split tiramisu again, and I told her about something funny that happened at the youth center. She told me about a board meeting where one of the members had accidentally called in from their car wash. We laughed until our sides hurt, and I thought about how natural this felt now compared to that awful first dinner. 6 months in, I took Amanda back to Marcello's one more time. I'd been planning this for weeks, coordinating with the restaurant staff, making sure everything was perfect. We sat at table 12 like always, and we talked and laughed through dinner like we did every time. When dessert arrived, there was a small box on the plate next to the tiramisu. Amanda looked at it, then looked at me, and her eyes went wide. I got out of my chair and knelt down next to the table. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Amanda, I spent 8 months thinking you were intimidating and out of my league. Then I spent one dinner realizing you were actually funny and kind and nothing like what I'd assumed. And I've spent the last 6 months falling completely in love with you. You make me want to be better at everything I do. You make me laugh. You challenge me. You believe in the same things I believe in, and I don't want to spend another day without knowing you're going to be part of my life forever. I opened the box and the ring caught the light. Will you marry me? Amanda was crying, actually crying, and she nodded so hard I thought she might hurt her neck. Yes, yes, of course, yes. I slipped the ring on her finger, and she pulled me up and kissed me right there in the middle of the restaurant while other diners applauded. We sat back down, both of us grinning like idiots, and Amanda kept looking at her hand. I can't believe you proposed at the place where we had our disaster first date. I laughed. It felt right. This is where it all started. Where I realized that sometimes the person you're trying to avoid is actually exactly who you need. We finished dessert, and as we left the restaurant that night, Amanda held my hand tight. I thought about how I'd almost missed all of this because I was too intimidated to see past her CEO title. Sometimes love shows up disguised as the boss who makes you nervous, until you take the time to see the incredible person behind the professional mask. And sometimes the worst blind date of your life turns into the best decision you ever made.